If it's begging you not to save it, you should probably listen. The cargo hold pulsed with a low mechanical hum, each vibration crawling through the soles of Ethan Cole's boots as emergency lights washed the corridor in slow, bleeding red, the air thin and cold enough that every breath left a ghost in front of his visor as he moved forward, step by careful step, guided by a flickering HUD that struggled to map the damaged ship, pressure holding at 72%, oxygen marginal, power failing deck by deck. But something else kept pulling his attention. Deeper, not the failing systems, not the distant echo of shifting metal, but the marks, long, curved scoring along the bulkheads as if something had dragged its way through solid steel without needing a door. Ethan paused, gloved hand brushing one of the grooves, edges smooth, almost melted, not cut, not broken, reshaped. His training whispered caution, but his instincts said something worse, something alive. He pushed forward anyway because that's what he did, not a hero, just a man who didn't leave things behind, especially not when they might still be breathing. The hatch to the lower hold resisted before giving with a reluctant hiss, colder air spilling out, sharp with ozone and something faintly metallic. His suit compensated, warming his skin, but it didn't touch the chill that settled in his chest as he stepped inside and saw the chains before he saw her. Thick, black links anchored into the floor, the walls, even the ceiling, humming faintly with a field he couldn't identify. Not human tech, not anything standard issue, which meant someone out here had built a cage for a reason. Ethan followed the lines upward and finally found her suspended at the center of it all, blue skin dim under the failing lights, long strands of silver-white hair drifting with each subtle shift of the ship, her head lowered at first, still, too still, until his boots scraped against the deck and her eyes snapped open, not glowing, not monstrous, just aware, painfully aware, locking onto him. With a clarity that made his breath catch, she didn't scream, didn't struggle, didn't plead. Instead her lips parted slowly, voice barely more than air moving across glass. Don't. The word was soft, but it carried, threading through the hum of the ship, steady enough to stop him mid-step. Ethan frowned. Instinct fighting instruction, every protocol he'd ever learned pushing him toward the obvious. Prisoner equals rescue. Chains equal wrong. He moved closer anyway, one careful step, then another, the faint light reflecting off the field around the restraints, his scanner glitching when it tried to read them. Unknown energy signature, unstable, dangerous. He reached the first anchor point and hesitated, her gaze never leaving him. Not fearful, not hopeful, something else, something heavier, like she was measuring him, not as a threat but as a consequence. You're not safe here, he said, voice steady, human, grounding, the kind of tone you use when everything else is falling apart. Her expression shifted just slightly, not quite a smile, not quite pain. Neither are you, she whispered. The ship groaned again, louder this time, something collapsing somewhere above them. Time thinning, options narrowing. Ethan's hand hovered over the release mechanism, fingers inches from the control, and that's when she shook her head, slow, deliberate, chains whispering as they moved with her. Please, she said, and this time there was something in it, not fear for herself, but for him. Don't be kind to me. The word lingered in the cold air longer than it should have, as if the ship itself refused to let it go. Ethan Cole kept his hand hovering inches from the release, fingers tense inside his glove while the low hum of the chains vibrated through the metal floor and into his bones. His visor display flickered again, struggling to interpret the energy field surrounding the restraints. Unknown composition, adaptive frequency. Designed not just to hold but to respond. He exhaled slowly, watching the faint cloud of his breath drift and disappear. You are telling me not to help you, he said, voice quieter now, less certain. The woman suspended before him did not move much, only the slight rise and fall of her chest proving she was not part of the machinery. Her eyes remained fixed on his, steady, unblinking. I am telling you, she replied, each word measured, careful. That help is not always what it looks like. Somewhere above them, a distant metallic impact echoed through the hull, followed by a shudder that rippled through the compartment, dust falling in slow, drifting lines. Ethan glanced toward the ceiling, calculating time, structural integrity dropping. Whatever had happened to this vessel was getting worse. Fast, he looked back at her, really looked this time. Not as a target, not as a mission objective, but as a person. The faint glow beneath her blue skin pulsed irregularly, like something beneath the surface trying to sync with a rhythm it could not quite find. The chains were not just holding her, they were stabilizing her. His training caught up with his instincts, and for the first time since entering the hold, he did not reach forward. He stepped closer instead, but slower now, deliberate, controlled. Who put you here? He asked. She tilted her head slightly, the motion small but precise, as if even movement required calculation. The ones who understood what I am, she answered. No bitterness, no anger, just fact. Ethan frowned behind his visor. And what are you? The question hung between them, heavier than the failing gravity systems. Her gaze softened for a fraction of a second. Not weakness, something closer to regret. I was a solution, she said quietly. Until I was not. Another tremor rolled through the ship, lights dimming further before stabilizing at a lower intensity, casting longer shadows across the walls. Ethan's suit compensated again, but the cold felt sharper now, more personal. He crouched slightly near the first anchor point, not touching it, just studying it. The field shifted subtly in response to his proximity, like it was aware of him. These chains, he murmured, they are not punishment. She shook her head once. They are permission. That made him pause. Truly pause, his mind running through possibilities, containment, regulation, control systems designed for something that could not regulate itself. He looked back up at her. Permission for what? Her lips parted, but for a moment no sound came out, as if even saying it carried weight. Then, softly, for me to stay? Ethan's brow tightened, confusion mixing with a growing, uncomfortable understanding. Stay what? He pressed, and this time, when she answered, her voice dropped even lower, almost lost beneath the hum of the ship. Stay me. The words settled into him. Not dramatic, not loud, just undeniable. Outside the hold, something shifted again, closer now, a rhythmic vibration that did not match the ship's failing systems. Ethan's HUD pinged a proximity alert. Movement in the corridor, not debris, not mechanical, something approaching. His instincts snapped back into place, urgency rising. He looked at the chains, then at her. Then back toward the hatch. Time was gone. Choice was not. His hand moved again toward the release, slower this time, heavier, and her eyes followed it, not with fear, but with a quiet, almost pleading certainty that made his chest tighten. If you open that, she whispered, you will not be saving me. The proximity alert intensified. Whatever was coming was almost at the door now. Ethan's fingers brushed the control, and for the first time in his life, doing the right thing did not feel clear. At all. The hatch behind Ethan Cole buckled with a hollow metallic thud, not breaking but flexing inward like something on the other side was testing it. Patient, deliberate. His visor lit up with warning indicators. Proximity less than 10 feet. Movement irregular, not matching any known boarding pattern. His pulse climbed, but his breathing stayed measured, trained, controlled. He did not turn around. Not yet. His focus remained on the woman suspended in chains, because somehow she felt more immediate than whatever waited beyond that door. Her eyes had shifted, not toward the hatch, but toward him, as if the real danger was not what was coming but what he might do next. You hear that? He said quietly, more statement than question. She nodded once, a small motion that set the chains whispering again. They are not here for the ship, she replied. They are here for what it carries. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. He glanced back at the hatch this time, watching the surface ripple again. Under controlled pressure, not chaotic, not desperate. Whatever was out there knew exactly what it was doing. Then he looked back at her. You, he said, and she did not deny it. She only held his gaze with that same quiet certainty that had unsettled him from the beginning. Another impact rolled through the door, louder now, followed by a thin line of light forcing its way through the seam. The ship groaned in protest. Systems flickering harder, time collapsing into seconds. Ethan shifted his stance, one hand moving instinctively toward the sidearm secured at his thigh, but he did not draw it. Not yet. Because deep down he knew this was not a fight he could solve with force. Not this time. His other hand remained near the release, hovering, undecided. If I leave you like this, he said, voice steady but low, they take you. She closed her eyes briefly, not in fear, not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. Yes, she said. And if I free you? He continued, the words heavier now, shaped by everything he had seen in the last few minutes, everything he had not yet fully understood. Her eyes opened again, locking onto his, and for the first time there was something unmistakable in them, not fear for herself, but fear of what might follow. Then you take the risk they chose not to, she answered. Another strike hit the hatch, this time the metal bent further inward, a sharp creak echoing through the hold as the seal began to fail. Ethan's HUD flashed red, breach imminent. He exhaled once, long and controlled, his mind cutting through the noise, through the fear, through the training that told him to act fast, because fast was not always right. He looked at the chains again, at the way they pulsed in rhythm with her, stabilizing, containing, not cruel, not random, intentional, then back at her, at the way she held herself perfectly still despite the tension building in the air, like she had done this before, like she had made this choice before, and did not want to make it again. You said they are permission, he murmured, almost to himself. She nodded slightly. Permission to remain who I choose to be. Ethan's fingers finally touched the release control, not pressing it, just resting there. Feeling the faint vibration of the system beneath his glove, the hatch screamed as a fracture line spread across its surface, light spilling through in sharp lines. Whatever was outside no longer testing. Now it was entering. The ship shook harder, dust and fragments drifting in the air between them. And in that suspended moment, with everything about to break, Ethan made a decision that was neither fast nor easy. His hand moved, not to fully disengage the system, but to isolate a single restraint, the one binding her right arm. The interface responded with a soft tone. Confused, recalibrating. The chain released with a sharp metallic click, and the energy field shifted, not collapsing, not failing, adjusting. Her body reacted instantly, not violently, but like something inside her had just been given space to breathe. She inhaled sharply, shoulders tensing, eyes widening for a fraction of a second before locking back onto him. And this time her voice carried something new, something fragile and dangerous at once. That was enough, she said. Almost a warning, almost a promise. Behind Ethan, the hatch finally gave way with a tearing sound, the door bending inward as light flooded the hold. And for the first time, he did not turn to face what was coming, because he was watching her instead, waiting to see what she would choose to become. The light from the torn hatch cut across the cargo hold in sharp, white lines, dust drifting through it like slow-falling ash as Ethan Cole stood frozen for half a second longer than he should have. Not because he did not understand the danger, but because he was watching her. The single-release chain hung loose at her side, swaying gently as if testing its own freedom, and the change in her was immediate, but not explosive, not chaotic. It was contained, deliberate, like something immense, pressing quietly against a boundary it had not expected to move. Her blue skin pulsed faintly brighter beneath the dim red emergency lights, not glowing but deepening, as if layers beneath the surface were waking one by one. Her breathing shifted, no longer shallow, now measured, controlled in a way that felt practiced, learned. Her eyes never left Ethan, and for a brief moment the noise of the ship, the tearing metal, the warning alerts all seemed distant compared to the silence between them. Do not move, she said, her voice still soft but carrying a weight it had not before, not a command, not exactly. More like a boundary being drawn. Ethan did not argue. He did not reach for another release. He did not turn fully toward the opening behind him even as shapes moved in the fractured light, tall outlines crossing the threshold, their presence announced by the subtle shift in air pressure and the low mechanical cadence of something stepping where it did not belong. His training urged him to react, to assess, to engage, but something deeper held him still, trust forming not from logic but from observation. She had not lied to him, not once. Her free hand lifted slightly, fingers curling as if feeling the space around her, testing it. The remaining chains responded with a faint hum, tightening just enough to remind both of them that they were still in control, or trying to be. The figures at the hatch advanced a few steps into the hold, their silhouettes breaking into clearer form against the light, not rushing, not hesitating, moving with purpose, and yet none of them closed the distance fully, as if they were waiting, watching, just as Ethan was, just as she was. The air shifted again, subtle but undeniable, a pressure that did not belong to gravity or atmosphere. Ethan felt it against his suit first, a low vibration through the plating, then through his chest. Like standing near something powerful but restrained, his visor flickered, systems attempting to recalibrate to an unknown field. Readings unstable, non-hostile but escalating. He swallowed once, steadying himself, and realized the sensation was not coming from the intruders. It was coming from her. She tilted her head slightly, listening to something no one else could hear, and then she took a single breath, deeper than before, slower, as if anchoring herself to that moment, to that choice. The loose chain at her arm lifted a fraction, not pulled, not forced, simply reacting. Her eyes softened for just a second when they met his again, and in that brief flicker Ethan understood something without needing it explained. She was not asking for permission anymore. She was asking for trust, the kind that did not come with guarantees. Behind him one of the figures shifted, a faint mechanical sound echoing across the metal floor. An instinct finally forced Ethan to turn his head just enough to see them more clearly. Outlines defined by the harsh light. Unfamiliar armor, smooth surfaces that reflected nothing. Their attention fixed not on him, but on her. Always on her. He turned back just as quickly, unwilling to break that connection, unwilling to become a distraction in something he was only beginning to understand. "I am still here," she said quietly, almost to herself, as if confirming it, as if reminding something deeper that it had not taken over yet. Hardest thing a human could do was nothing, and somehow, in that moment, that felt like the only right choice. The air in the cargo hold grew heavier, not thicker, but denser in a way Ethan Cole could feel through the joints of his suit, as if the space itself had weight now. Pressing in without touching, the red emergency lights dimmed further, flickering as the ship struggled to maintain even the illusion of stability. And still he did not move, because she had not moved, not truly. Her body remained suspended, held by the remaining chains that hummed in low, steady tones, no longer resisting her but aligning with her, responding to something deeper than simple containment. Her free arm hung at her side, but not loosely. There was intention in the stillness, like a held breath that had not yet been released. Across the fractured threshold the figures remained just inside the hold. Their presence controlled, measured, not advancing, not retreating, waiting, always waiting. Ethan's visor attempted another scan. Outlines shifting into partial data, unknown materials, adaptive surfaces, no. Visible weapon signatures. But that meant nothing. Not here, not now. His attention pulled back to her again as the subtle glow beneath her skin stabilized into a faint, steady rhythm. No longer erratic. No longer searching. She had found something to hold on to. Or someone. Her gaze shifted slightly, not away from him but through him, as if aligning with a point just beyond his physical presence. And then her voice came again, quieter than before but clearer, more certain. "They will not cross." "Further," she said, not a guess, not hope, a statement of fact. Ethan's brow tightened behind his visor. He glanced briefly toward the figures at the hatch, and realized she was right. They had stopped at an invisible boundary, a line in space that had not been there moments ago, something she was creating without movement, without force, just by existing in control. He exhaled slowly, tension shifting in his chest, not gone, but redirected. "You are holding them back," he said, and she did not look proud, did not look strained. She simply nodded once. "As long as I remain," she replied, and that word settled into him. Remain. Not survive, not fight. Remain. His gaze dropped to the chains again, understanding layering itself piece by piece. They were not just limiting her. They were anchoring her, giving her something to stay within, a shape, a boundary, a choice. Ethan shifted his stance slightly, boots scraping softly against the metal floor, the sound small but real, grounding. "And if you do not?" he asked, not because he needed the answer but because he needed to hear her say it. She was quiet for a moment, not hesitating, just choosing the words with care. "Then I become what they expect," she said, her eyes flickering briefly toward the figures at the hatch. And for the first time there was something there, not fear, but recognition, history. She knew them, or something like them. The hum of the chains deepened slightly, as if responding to that shift, tightening just enough to remind both of them. Ethan followed her gaze for a second longer this time, studying the figures more closely, the way they stood just beyond that unseen line, not pressing, not testing, almost respectful in their distance, as if they understood the boundary as well as she did, as if they were waiting for her to fail rather than trying to force her to. That realization settled heavily in his mind. This was not a simple rescue, not a simple threat. This was something else entirely, something older, more deliberate. He looked back at her and saw it more clearly now. Not a prisoner, not a weapon, but a decision, a constant, fragile decision. And for the first time since entering the hold, Ethan did not feel like the one in control of anything. Systems let out a long, uneven hum, like something breathing its last through metal and wire. And Ethan Cole felt the vibration shift beneath his boots as structural integrity warnings flared across his visor in sharp red text. Deck stability dropping, power rerouting in desperate loops. But none of it pulled his focus away from her, because she had not changed position, not outwardly. And yet everything about the space around her had become different. The air no longer felt neutral. It felt held, contained, like a pressure that was not pushing outward but being carefully folded inward. Her single freed arm lifted slightly higher now, not reaching, not striking, just hovering in the space between control and release. And the chains responded again, not tightening, not resisting, but synchronizing, their low hum aligning with the steady rhythm beneath her skin. Ethan took a slow step closer, careful, deliberate, testing the invisible boundary she had created, and he felt it. Immediately, not a wall, not a force, but a resistance, like stepping into water that was not there. His suit sensors flickered as they tried to interpret it. But he did not pull back. He stopped just at the edge, respecting something he could not fully understand. "You are holding more than them," he said quietly, his voice steady despite the growing instability around them. Her eyes shifted toward him again, and this time there was a faint trace of something warmer in them. Not relief, not gratitude, but recognition. "I am holding myself," she replied, and the simplicity of it carried more weight than any explanation. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly as another tremor rolled through the hull, a sharp crack echoing somewhere distant, closer than before, time pressing in again. Always pressing. He glanced toward the hatch where the figures remained, still unmoving, still waiting, their silhouettes unchanged, their patience unsettling, as if they knew something he did not, as if they were certain the outcome would come to them eventually without effort. That realization settled uneasily in his chest. "They are not afraid of you," he said, more to test the thought than to challenge her. She followed his gaze briefly, then looked back at him, calm, grounded. "No," she said. "They are waiting for me to stop being this." Her words hung in the air as the chains gave a subtle pulse, reinforcing, reminding. Ethan looked at them again, really looked this time, at the way they connected not just to her body but to the structure of the ship itself, integrated, deliberate, a system designed not just to restrain, but to support a constant decision. And for the first time, a different kind of realization formed in his mind, one that shifted everything he thought he understood about rescue. He reached out slowly, not toward the release, but toward the chain that remained connected to her arm, stopping just short of touching it, the faint energy field brushing against his glove like static. "This is not a prison," he said, more certain now. She shook her head once, a small motion that carried no hesitation. "No," she answered. "It is a promise." Ethan exhaled slowly, the words settling into him. Promise, not imposed, not forced, chosen, maintained. His gaze lifted back to hers, searching, not for weakness, not for danger, but for the truth she had been showing him piece by piece. "And if the ship fails?" he asked, because the question mattered now, because everything else was beginning to fall apart around them. Her expression did not change, but something in her eyes deepened, like a horizon shifting just out of reach. "Then I will have to decide again," she said, and there it was, the core of it. Not a single moment, not a single choice, but a continuous one, repeated over and over, held together by will, by restraint, by something far stronger than force. The deck shuddered again, harder this time, lights dimming to a faint, flickering glow as power reserves dropped to critical levels. Ethan's HUD flashed evacuation protocols, route suggestions, survival probabilities, but he ignored them, because leaving was not the question anymore. Understanding was, and standing there at the edge of something he could not fully define, he realized that whatever happened next, whatever choice she would be forced to make, it would not be his to control, only his to witness, and somehow, that felt heavier than any weapon he had ever carried. The deck lurched hard enough this time that Ethan Cole had to widen his stance to stay upright, boots scraping against the metal as a deep, resonant crack echoed through the structure of the ship. Not distant anymore, not somewhere else, it was here now, moving closer with every passing second. The emergency lights dimmed to a faint pulse, barely enough to outline the space, and yet the glow beneath her skin remained steady, unwavering, as if she had become the only constant left in a system that was falling apart. Ethan's visor flooded with warnings, evacuation routes collapsing one by one, pressure loss imminent. But he did not move, because she had not moved, because whatever was about to happen was centered here, in this hold, in this moment. Her lifted hand trembled for the first time, not violently, not out of fear, but from strain, the kind that came from holding something too large for too long. The invisible boundary she had created flickered, not breaking, but thinning, and the figures at the hatch responded instantly, not advancing fully, but shifting forward just enough to test the edge of that space. Their patience changing into anticipation. Ethan saw it clearly now. They were not simply waiting, they were watching for weakness. And for the first time since he had met her, he saw it, too. Not in her posture, not in her eyes, but in the subtle instability of the field around her. The chains hummed louder, compensating, reinforcing, but even they could not fully mask the effort it was taking. Ethan's chest tightened as understanding settled into something heavier. She could hold this, but not forever, and the ship was not going to give her time. Another tremor shook the hold, stronger, more violent in its movement, panels above them splitting with sharp metallic groans as fragments drifted down, and the boundary flickered again. Thinner now, the figures at the hatch stepping closer, just inches more, their silhouettes sharpening in the failing light. Ethan's instincts surged, urgency cutting through the stillness he had held onto for so long. He stepped forward without thinking this time, closing the distance to her, not crossing the boundary she had set, but close enough that he could see the strain in the fine details, the way her breath hitched slightly before she forced it back into rhythm, the way her fingers curled tighter as if gripping something unseen. "You cannot keep this up," he said, not as a challenge, but as truth. She did not deny it. Her eyes flickered once, then steadied again on him. And there was something new there, not just control, not just restraint, but a question, one she had not asked before. "I can," she said softly, for a moment. And that moment hung between them, fragile, finite. Ethan glanced back toward the hatch, the figures now closer than before, their presence pressing against the thinning boundary, not breaking it, not yet, but waiting for it to fail. He turned back to her, and for the first time since entering the hold, he did not see her as something contained, or something dangerous. He saw her as someone carrying a weight no one else could, alone, always, alone, and something in him refused that, not because it was logical, not because it was safe, but because it was human. His hand moved again, not toward the full release, not toward undoing everything she had chosen, but toward another chain, slower this time, deliberate, giving her time to stop him if she needed to. Her eyes widened just slightly, not in fear, but in realization. "If you do this," she whispered, and there was something in her voice now, something uncertain, something almost fragile. Ethan met her gaze fully, steady, grounded. "Then you will not be holding it alone," he said, and for a brief second, everything else seemed to fade. The alarms, the failing ship, the waiting figures, all of it dimmed behind that single exchange. Her breath caught. Just once, the chains pulsed again, reacting, recalibrating, and then, slowly, she nodded, not fully, not confidently, but enough to say yes. Enough to say she was willing to try. Ethan's fingers pressed the control, and another chain released with a sharp, echoing click. The energy field shifted again, expanding, changing, and this time the air itself seemed to pause, as if the entire ship was holding its breath along with them. The second chain released with a sharp, resonant click that echoed through the cargo hold like a decision that could not be taken back, and everything changed, not suddenly, not violently, but undeniably. The air thickened again, heavier than before, pressing against Ethan Cole's suit, as if the space itself had become aware of the shift. Her body lowered a fraction of an inch as the remaining restraints adjusted, recalibrating to a balance they had not been designed to maintain, and this time, the glow beneath her blue skin deepened into something steadier, more defined, not flickering, not searching, but present, fully present. Her free arm lifted higher now, fingers spreading slightly as if feeling currents no one else could perceive, and the invisible boundary expanded with it, not pushing outward aggressively, but settling into place like a line that had always been there, just waiting to be recognized. Ethan felt it move past him, not forcing him back, not even touching him, but existing in a way that made him understand he was now inside it, part of the space she was holding together. Behind him, the figures at the hatch reacted for the first time with something that was not patience. They stopped completely, their forward motion halted not by resistance, but by recognition, as if they understood the rules had changed, as if they knew this version of her was something different from what they had been waiting for. Ethan turned his head slightly, just enough to confirm it. Their silhouettes remained still, but the tension in their posture had shifted, no longer leaning forward, no longer testing, now simply observing again, but this time with a different kind of attention, one that acknowledged a boundary not easily broken. He turned back to her quickly, because she was the center of it all, and he saw it now. Clearly, the strain had not disappeared, but it had changed shape, no longer a fragile thread about to snap. Now something more stable, more deliberate, but still finite, always finite. Her breathing was deeper now, each inhale measured, each exhale controlled, like she was counting something only she could see. Her eyes met his again, and this time there was no warning in them, no fear, just a quiet, steady awareness. "You should step back," she said softly, not as a command, not as rejection, but as care. Ethan did not move, not immediately, because he understood what she meant. The space she was holding was not dangerous to him, but what might happen next could be. And still, he remained where he was, grounded, present, his voice low but firm. "I am not leaving you alone in this." And the words settled between them with a weight that neither of them tried to dismiss. Her expression shifted, just slightly, not breaking, not softening completely, but something in her eyes changed, something that had not been there before. Recognition, not of him as a threat, not as an interruption, but as someone choosing to stay within her boundary. Not break it, not escape it, but share it. The chains hummed again, quieter now, almost like a background tone rather than a dominant force. They were no longer the only thing holding her in place. She was holding herself, and somehow, so was he. The ship shuddered again, harder this time, the floor beneath them tilting just a fraction as structural supports failed somewhere deeper in the vessel. Alarms flared across Ethan's visor in rapid succession. Evacuation no longer recommended, collapse imminent, and still, neither of them moved, because this moment was not about escape. It was about choice. Her gaze flickered once toward the hatch, then back to him, and for the first time, there was something almost uncertain in her voice. Not fear, but possibility. "If this holds," she said slowly, carefully, as if testing the words as she spoke them, "then they will not take me." Ethan nodded once, steady, unwavering. "Then we make it hold," he replied, and the simplicity of it settled into the space around them. Not a plan, not a strategy, just a decision. And as the ship continued to break apart around them, that decision became the only thing that did not. The ship gave one final, long groan that rolled through every surface like a warning that had already come too late, and then the lights went out completely, leaving only the faint glow beneath her skin to define the space. Soft blue illuminating the edges of broken metal and drifting dust as Ethan Cole stood within the boundary she held, no longer guided by systems or signals, only by what he could feel. The pressure still there, steady now, no longer collapsing but contained, balanced on something fragile and deliberate. Her breathing slowed, deeper, more controlled than before, each inhale anchoring her, each exhale reinforcing the space she refused to let break. The remaining chains no longer hummed loudly. They had quieted into something almost gentle, a low resonance that supported rather than restrained. And for the first time since he had found her, she did not look like something being held back. She looked like someone choosing to remain. Ethan's visor dimmed his power. Reserves failed, displays flickering out one by one until only the most basic readouts remained. Oxygen stable for now, structural integrity unknown, external signals gone. The world beyond the hold no longer mattered, because